It is an honor to join you today in this most important gathering of champions for our youngest and most vulnerable citizens. I am grateful as well to be given the opportunity to celebrate with all of you the milestones of our common vision that have directed us towards recognizing the needs of children during their early years and transforming them into action through the development and implementation of the early childhood care and development services for all. According to the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM-2, Year 1 report, a substantial portion of our population, at 10.2% as of 2020, that is almost 11.1 million Filipinos, falls within the early childhood stage of 0 to 4 years. These years are crucial to a child's educational development. Faced with our country's urgent need for education reforms, it is imperative now more than ever that we prioritize pushing for relevant and sustainable data-driven ECCD policies and initiatives. Based on the DOST FNRI 2023 National Nutrition Survey, 15.1% of our country's children ages 0 to 4 are underweight. Furthermore, stunting for the same age group is at a staggering 23.6%, with the highest prevalence in regions with the most number of geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas such as the Zamboanga Peninsula and BARM. And while 38,235 barangays have child development centers, according to data from LGUs as of 2023, the ECCD Council National Monitoring reports only 670 trained child development teachers. This latest data show that while the government has made strides in expanding access to early childhood education, disparities remain, particularly in rural and geographically isolated areas. Many daycares continue to operate with limited resources, and the professional development of our child development workers needs greater institutional support. Nutrition, health services, and parenting education, which are pillars of early childhood care, still require more integration and coordination. And while the importance of the first 1,000 days of life is now widely recognized, translating this awareness into concrete action across all levels of governance continues to be a challenge. In the 19th Congress, we pushed for reforms and worked closely with the ECCD Council, the Department of Education, DSWD, EDCOM-2, and our partners in civil society and local governments, which resulted in the enactment of the Early Childhood Care and Development System Act last May 8, 2025. Through this law, we are creating a more comprehensive and robust ECCD system through multi-sectoral and interagency collaboration with the Department of Interior and Local Government, DILG, at the helm. Along with the Department of Education, this whole-of-nation approach ensures that the ECCD system shall be implemented by the local government units with sufficient funding to facilitate capacity building of service providers and better targeting of beneficiaries. Additionally, proper and effective delivery of programs and services included in the ECCD system shall be a criterion when conferring the seal of good local governance. This act also mandates the creation of plantilla positions for child development teachers and child development workers in every city and in municipalities. It includes provisions for national competency assessments certifications, and opportunities for continuing education through scholarship programs for upskilling. A CDT, or a child development teacher with a bachelor's degree, preferably with units in early childhood education, and has passed the board licensure examination for professional teachers or the LET exams, shall have a minimum salary grade of 11, while a CDW with an associate degree shall have a salary grade 10. Other CDWs with at least a senior high school graduate and has passed the National Competency Assessment for CDWs or a high school graduate who has finished 2 years of tertiary education and has passed the same assessment by the TESDA for CDWs shall be entitled to a salary grade of 8. We hope that through this measure, we are able to encourage more professionals to dedicate their service to the care and development of our youngest children while being able to provide them with the necessary enhanced training and standardized compensation. Now, that was the prepared speech. I think we all deserve to know how the ECCD Act came about. In 2019, when I became chairperson of the Committee on Basic Education and Culture, we were talking with the Senate with respect to many of the reforms needed in our education system, including the K-12 program, which is a failure. But then, during all these conversations, it was decided that we must be together, the Senate and the House, with all education stakeholders. That is why we formed, by law, the EDCOM 2, the Education Commission, the Second Congressional Education Commission. In reality, when we formed the EDCOM 2, to my mind, there would be about 5 to 10 major challenges, and all with respect to the K-12 program. But when we began meeting and the education stakeholders were present, one of the most basic, fundamental problems pointed out to us was with respect to the ECCD program. In truth, this ECCD, or those below 5 years old, by the past administrations, and I'm not pointing to anyone, many past administrations, they always use this as a slogan. Para makilala lang, legacy, masabi lang na may programa para sa mga bata. But I'm glad to report to you today that under this new ECCD Act, we will really put meat into what we mean taking care of children below 5 years of age. During the EDCOM 2, one issue brought up to us was there was no data. We were with the ECCD Council, and the ECCD Council was telling us this was their data. We were asking them, why are we not tapping the local government units? And to be fair to the ECCD Council, the local government units were already doing their part, but they were really not coordinating properly with our ECCD Council. This ECCD Council was headed before by the Office of the President. They transferred it to the Department of Social Welfare and Development. They transferred it to the Department of Education. Then they transferred it again to the DSWD. And then they were going back and forth. But the problem really is, we cannot solve the problem without the help of the LGUs, the local government units. And many local government units are already doing their part. But the problem really is, there was lack of coordination because it was DSWD or DepEd who was leading the ECCD. That is why, if you will notice, under this new law, the new co-chairperson is the Department of Interior and Local Government. Why the DILG? Because we want the DILG, to whom most of the local officials report to, make our local officials accountable for what they are doing to our children below 5 years of age. Second, the second problem was funding. And I was listening earlier, again, funding is really a problem. But the Philippines is composed of LGUs which have varying or different financial resources. There are LGUs in the Philippines which actually have the financial capability to be able to fund ECCD programs. But there are also LGUs that don't have the funding. So in this bill, in this law, now it is now a law, what we did was we focused the help of the national government funding to the 4th, 5th, and 6th municipalities. So those LGUs which have the funding, example, urban centers like Metro Manila, where the mayors are progressive enough and are doing their work, we want them to be able to spend their funds. And so the meager funds of the national government can be used for the 4th, 5th, 6th municipalities, so that, again, no one is left behind. And third, and I think this is important, and I mentioned it earlier, we included also in the DILG's giving of the local seal of good governance, the ECCD activities of the LGU. So an LGU now will not get its local seal of good governance if it does not comply with the provisions of law with respect to the ECCD. Again, the LGUs, many LGUs in this country are doing their jobs. Aminin naman natin ng totoo, marami ng progressive na mayors and governors. The problem really is coordination. With DILG at the helm, I am sure coordination will be much easier. And finally, we will be able to really not make it a mere slogan as what others used to do, but in reality, help children below 5 years of age. Let me also point out that in EDCOM 2, we various NGOs and financial organizations presented to us FGDs and surveys. And if you will notice, under the new law, although there still will be daycare centers and CDCs, the focus is no longer on the daycare centers or the CDCs. That is still a must, but let us also embrace reality. Based on the FGD submitted to EDCOM 2, many Filipino families, in fact, don't send their children below 5 to the daycare centers because of practical reasons. And that practical reason is simple. If they're going to send their children for 3 to 4 hours only. If they have 2, 3, 4 children in their families, that will be time taken away from the other children that they are taking care of also. So here in this new law, we are also stressing the importance of community-based playtime so that we will, neighborhood community playtime so that we are able to help those parents who are unable to send their children formally to the daycare schools. Again, I was telling Ma'am Insyong earlier, we should really be able to put that mindset into our local officials that the physical structure is important, but there is a reality that parents cannot send their children below 5. So let us not be too consumed with CDCs and community centers or daycare centers. Let us develop the community and neighborhood play centers that we can do so that we go to the parents instead of them going to us. Medyo mahaba na. Kaya siguro binigyan ko prepared speech. But I want to mention one more thing. This ECCD Act should not be viewed in isolation. This ECCD Act should be viewed and taken together with the other laws that we have recently passed. It is really a full package. Example, we also passed the Inclusive Learning Education Law. Under that Inclusive Learning Education Law, we are supposed to track every childbirth in every barangay, in every city and municipality. Why? Because we want to know if there is a child with a disability, is it possible for the local and national governments to intervene immediately so that the child can be brought to the mainstream at the very onset? Hindi po, not unlike what we have now. We have SPED centers which are actually working in isolation. I must give credit to the teachers of our SPED schools. They tried their best. They tried to raise their voices and their hands whenever there is a DepEd meeting. But because of the large number of students in the mainstream DepEd schools, their voices and their hands are drowned by the numbers of those going to the regular or the mainstream DepEd schools. With inclusive education, we bring to life even the child fine system, which has been in existence for a long time. The child fine system, they did that a long time ago via a law. But then it was also a slogan. They never implemented it, and they never cared to really implement it. But under the ECCD, together with the Inclusive Learning Education Act, we will finally be able to put together and be able to have a program from the first 1,000 days up to the time that the child graduates from grade 12. And just the last measure that I want to mention, we recently passed in Congress. I'm not sure if it has already been signed. We passed it in the last week, so last June. We passed the Lifelong Learning Act in both houses of Congress. Although it seems like it's a law that is too general, if you read the enrolled bill, it will be a law that will complement the ECCD and the Inclusive Learning Education. Why? Because under the Lifelong Learning Act, we are authorizing all local government officials, mayors and governors, to use their Special Education Fund, or SEF, to be able to introduce programs to individuals or citizens who are no longer of school age. So from birth up to you die, pwede nang gamitin yung SEF ng ating mga lokal na pamahalan para gumawa ng mga programa. Sa totoo, maraming programa ang pwedeng gawin. Pero sabi ko nga, tatlo na lang siguro, dalawa lang talaga, ma'am, ang sinasabi ko. There are only two areas that I always emphasize that must be part immediately of the lifelong learning. The first is functional literacy for our parents. PSA has already said we have 19.1 functionally illiterate from 10 to 64. So maybe it is about time we ensure that even our adults are upskilled with respect to functional literacy. And the second is good manners and right conduct. We have put that back. Last Congress, we put that back. Tinanggal po yan ng K-12. We put that back last Congress. And that is now back in grades 1 to 6. Unfortunately, sa grades 1 to 6 lang yan. So under the lifelong learning, we will be able now to provide the SEF funds. I mean, mayors will be able to provide SEF funds for GMRC programs for even adults like us who probably need it more. And yung panghuli, I want to mention to Ma'am Insyong, and this is true, many local officials who I've spoken to, always ask about ECCD. In truth, all of us talk about ECCD. But maybe outside this room, outside this plenary, many actually do not understand what ECCD is all about. And the lifelong learning, if signed into law, can also be used to be able to upskill our local officials, local government employees on what ECCD is. Because truly, this is the key for us to be able to help our children, especially when they enter our elementary, all the way up to colleges. With that, I will no longer finish the prepared speech. But again, to the ECCD advocates here, congratulations, and hopefully, this law, together with the other enactments that have already been passed, we truly will be able to help those below 5 years of age and help our nation in the future. Mabuhay po at maraming salamat po.